Okay, we're going to cut the intro music short. This is Alternate Current on your radio station, KPFZ, and I am honored once again to have as our guest today Congressman John Garamendi, former Lieutenant Governor of the state of California, former insurance commissioner, and a longtime sufferer in the Congress now. Good morning, Congressman. Thank you for calling in.
It's good to be with you, and hello, Lake County.
All right. Well, when last we spoke, we were talking about the TPP, which I guess has come to pass. And
well, yes and no. The first piece of it, which is the Trade Promotion Authority, TPA, which is otherwise known as Fast Track, which basically Congress gave away its power to the president, and the president is now negotiating the TPP, which is the actual trade agreement.
Okay.
So we still have a shot at this. We'll see what the final result that the president comes down with. What I'm hearing is not good news for America. It is basically one more giveaway of our ability to maintain our economic strength, particularly in the manufacturing sector.
Yeah, that's so sad to see. Well, one day last week I turned on CNN and I saw you being interviewed by Wolf Blitzer. And you were speaking passionately about the proposed treaty with Iran, which kind of makes sense unless you actually lust to go to war, and we do have that faction. But I'd like your thoughts on that for the listeners today.
Sure. Well, for more than almost 20 years now, the United States, Israel, and others have been very concerned about Iran building a nuclear bomb. And about 3 years ago, during the period of time when Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State, she managed to pull together what are known as the P5+1, which is China, Russia, Germany, France, United Kingdom, and the United States, to, in concert, work together to stop Iran from getting a nuclear bomb. That then led to the United Nations sanctions on Iran and also congressional sanctions on Iran, which really put the squeeze on Iran. Very significant sanctions, economic sanctions, banking, commerce, oil, all of those things really put the squeeze on Iran. And then that resulted in Iran finally coming to the negotiating table, which began in earnest about a year and a half ago, and commenced about 2 weeks ago with the signing of this agreement by those 6 nations, China, Russia, Germany, France, and the United States, United Kingdom and the United States, and the European Union also joined in. And the agreement was that Iran would be prevented from building a nuclear bomb for an extended period of time, probably as far as 25 years out, certainly 10 years, and quite likely minimum of 15 years, Iran would not be able to build a nuclear bomb. Every path towards building a nuclear bomb would be interdicted, stopped, and monitored. Everything from mining the uranium to the processing of the fissile material, and then finally even any part of the explosives, the triggering devices, and so forth that are necessary. So it turns out that it is a very, very important thing because Iran is giving up its ability for this lengthy period of time to build a nuclear bomb. That was the goal. But it is extremely controversial. A lot of folks now think that more should have been done. They should be required not to engage in any nefarious activities. But that was never part of the deal. That was never part of the purpose. Well, and now we're going to deal with it. Congress has got about another 45 days to make a decision, yes or no. My guess is that Congress will say, no, we don't like this deal. The president will then veto it, and then the question is, will there be a veto override and the deal die? I hope not. I hope that the veto, first of all, I hope that we don't vote no on the deal. If we do, then I know the president's going to veto that action, and then I really hope and pray that we don't override that veto, because if we do, then Iran will be able to proceed to build a nuclear weapon, and the sanction regime simply isn't going to last.
Well,
Russia and China will walk away.
Isn't it childlike for some of the people in Congress to think that they can just simply dictate the terms of an agreement and force the other party to sign something that they like 100% without giving up anything?
Well, let me just put it this way. Congress is very, very bad at cutting a deal, period. We can't reach a compromise on when we're going to adjourn, let alone trying to negotiate an international agreement on nuclear weapons with Iran or anybody else. So the reality is that there's a lot of huffing and puffing going on around Congress, and people are beating their chest and saying they're tougher than tough and we could go to war. And I'm going, you really?
Yeah.
You really want to trash this agreement? And then my question is, then what happens?
Well, a few of the members of the clown train are actually bragging about the fact that they're going to be a wartime president. They're itching for the chance to once again throw our children into the grinder of the Middle East, as though that has ever worked once. It's amazing. They keep doing the same thing over and over again, and it never works. They're the same way on economics. Trickle-down economics has never worked, and they love it. And,
well, that's the definition of insanity.
Yeah.
Doing the same thing over and over, thinking that the next time it's going to work.
Yeah. This time it's different, and it is one of my questions that I was hoping to get to, and I know you're pressed for time today,
Sure.
was what is it like for a man like you who spent most of your adult life in public service, and knowing that up until recently, the two parties disagreed on how to get there, but both parties really genuinely seemed to care about what was good for the country and the people. And now we have one party that is just bent on winning, and they don't care if the people suffer as long as they win. And how do you get yourself up every day to go into a room full of those people who are really just only concerned with solidifying their own personal power?
Well, you got to take the long view. And you have to know what your goal is. Clearly, I want to see a very well-educated workforce. I want people to have good middle-class jobs. I want the environment protected. I want this climate issue to be addressed fully. These are long-term goals, and there are others. And so you got to keep that goal in mind and recognize that, I'm one of 7 siblings. And I learned very, very early in life that I didn't often get my way.
You had to fight for that drumstick.
Pretty much so. And so, it's a long-term view, and we keep working at it. We work, in many cases, we work around the edges. Clearly, the Republicans control both the Senate and the House, and as such, they set the terms. They dictate the process, and then they dictate the terms.
But now you sit on the infrastructure committee,
right?
And they refuse to pass a highway bill that's more than a couple of months long, and they refuse to raise the gas tax that hasn't been raised in over 20 years,
or any other revenue.
Right? They will not generate any revenue, and here we can't get an infrastructure bond passed. That we had a war bond during World War II where the money went for a specific purpose, and right now we can still issue a 10-year note at less than 2.5% interest, and we could sell $2 trillion worth of these bonds. We could replace all of the falling down bridges. We could make our mass transit and our rail system a modern transit and rail system. We could do so much for the country that would create so many jobs and such an economic boom. And I just don't understand why it's not being done.
We could call that an infrastructure bank. Makes eminent sense. You're talking about what should be done. As a supporter of an infrastructure bank, yes, you can borrow that money. 2% interest it's actually just slightly more than the inflation rate. And consider this in a different area, but using the same technique. The federal government could buy all of the student debt and reduce the cost of student debt from 6, 7, 8%, or even 10% to maybe 2%, 2.5%. Think what that would do for the economy. Think what that would do for young people to just simply refinance the student debt using the ability of the federal government to borrow money, replace the old loans with new loans, which is done when you refinance the house. It's refinancing the student debt. We could do these things. Yep. But it simply takes a Congress and a Senate that wants to help people, that wants to get things done. And so, how do we deal with it? We just keep advocating. We keep talking about this. For example, I'm making a great deal of progress right now on building ships in America. We used to be the biggest shipbuilding nation in the world. We've given it over to Japan and China, and Korea, who are subsidizing their shipbuilding industry. We're letting it go. We're talking about 100,000 very well-paid jobs in the shipyards, as well as the mariners that should be on those American-built ships. How can we do it? Well, if we're going to ship our LNG, our natural gas overseas, and I'm saying, well, put it on American ships. People are going, well, that's not a bad idea. Why don't we do that? So we work around the edges on some very, very important things, make some progress. Some of the other stuff, no, it's not going to happen. The transportation bill is the utmost of frustration, something that everybody knows ought to be done, but we can't get the Republicans to move on it.
I just don't know how you stand it. I mean, it really is.
Well, I talk on radio like this, and I just let it all out.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. That's what I do every Wednesday morning. I get to unleash the beast, as they say,
yeah.
and I go home much less angry. But it's just amazing. Why not have a bill passed in the federal government saying that the federal government will, within 10 years, produce enough green energy to stop relying on fossil fuels? Every military base, every federal building could be, generating its own power.
Let me take what you just said, and let me tell you what is actually happening in Congress.
Go ahead.
The House Armed Services Committee, of which I'm a member, votes every year on what the military is going to do the next year. This is called the National Defense Authorization Act. Every year we pass a piece of legislation that tells the military precisely what it will do. I mean, we're down into real details here. The House of Representatives, the committee dominated by the Republicans, and the House of Representatives, dominated by the Republicans, has passed the Defense Authorization Act that prohibits the military from using any renewable fuel, doing any research, doing anything, even talking about renewable fuel. And so biodiesel, anything. We had major military bases in Afghanistan that produced a massive amount of garbage, all of which could have been turned into biodiesel. The most dangerous thing that happens in Afghanistan is the transportation of diesel fuel from the port in Pakistan all the way into Afghanistan. That's where the American soldiers were killed and injured. That's where the IEDs were. We could have produced biofuel at the military base and reduce, not eliminate, but reduce the need for that imported fuel, saving American lives, and yet the Republicans in Congress voted to prohibit the military from even thinking about, let alone buying, purchasing, researching any of these alternative fuels.
Well, that's something that is a failure of our media to bring to the attention of the American people. They spend all their time talking about somebody who had a sex change operation, and whether Donald Trump thinks that rabbits ought to be able to fly, but they refuse to cover anything real. I just don't get it, and it's really frustrating.
Well,
as a citizen, as a parent, and as a grandparent who's concerned about the world we're going to leave to our future generations, and apparently Keith Richards. But it's just amazing to me that they do nothing, and they're proud of it, and they brag about it, and their constituents love them for it. I'm amazed.
Well, there's a high level of anger and frustration among the American public, and there's been a thread in American public life since we revolted against King George that we don't like government. And that's just part of us as Americans. But at the same time, from the very, very beginning of our nation, government has played a critical role in the economy. Interesting footnote of history. George Washington refused to be inaugurated in a British-built or manufactured suit. So he went to an American tailor with American wool and said, I want it made in America. And that's what he wore during his inauguration. And then he told Alexander Hamilton, the first Treasury Secretary, I want you to develop a policy for advancing American manufacturing. And you know what it was? Hamilton came back after about 2 months, probably with a committee of one, and produced about a 37-page report that said, the U.S. government should support infrastructure, canals, harbors, and postal roads. This was the very first days of the American government, and established the role of the federal government in building infrastructure. And here we are, all these years later, with a refusal by the Republicans to pass a transportation infrastructure bill.
In the very first sentence of the Constitution, the government is charged with the responsibility to promote the general welfare of the people, and the word welfare is capitalized. And seriously, and look at what happens in other countries. In France, people are willing to drive Peugeots and Renaults, which are utter pieces of crap, but they will buy those cars because they want their fellow Frenchmen to have jobs making cars.
Well, this is part of my Make It in America agenda, where I'm determined to deal with these trade policies, the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which basically guts the Buy America standard. Right now, we have standards that your tax dollars, my tax dollars, should be spent on American-made equipment. So when we build a bridge, it should be American steel, American concrete, by American workers.
Yep.
If we're going to buy a bus using your tax money, it should be an American-built bus.
Right.
The Trans-Pacific Partnership, as it is currently being negotiated, would give the Japanese manufacturers in Japan the same opportunity to access those American tax dollars as a bus manufacturer in Hayward, California.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. And it is such rotten policy.
Yep.
And and then they say, well, it's just equal. We have the same right to their market. Right? Are you kidding me? We have the same right to the Malaysian market, which is like 1/1000th of the American market.
And
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's hard. Like I've been saying for a long, long time, the only way to compete with slave labor is to become a slave.
Well, we don't want that to happen.
Well,
I'm going to have to run. I just noticed that they've called votes. I'm going to have to run and get over to the floor and cast a vote to do something good for America, or cast a no vote to prevent some bad thing from happening. Thank you very much. Good to be with you. Let's do it again.
Yes, thank you. I was just going to say I hope we get to do it again soon. Thank
you
again. We will.
Thank you.
All righty. Okay, listeners, that was Congressman John Garamendi. If you live here in the northern part of Lake County, he is your congressman, and he is one of the good guys. I am very, very proud, and there are very few people in Congress that I have anything good to say about. He is one of those people. When he was the insurance commissioner, the state of California, he had some things rewritten and favored the citizens of our community, and it's estimated that he saved the taxpayers of California over $20 billion because of his policies, and very, very proud that he's our guy.